Hey guys, another video for our How to Do Stuff in Japan playlist and our mini-series on raising kids in Japan. We made a video, a couple of videos and put some photos on Facebook a while ago about walking to school, kids walking to school. And because it's sort of an interesting topic, it's possibly a little bit different than what it is in some other countries. So to some people it was probably a little bit interesting. Today it's a little bit more of a concerning sort of look at what it's about. So we'll get to it so you guys can see for yourself. So the first thing is that, as we showed on the other video, the kids all meet up. They start off, the kid who's farthest away from the school will follow a route. The school gives them a route. The school marks on a map where all the kids are and then works out these groups and works out the route. And says, okay, this kid goes from here to this house and meets these guys, and then they go to this corner and they wait on this corner until the other guys come, and then they go to the next kid's house, and they work out this route all the way to school. And they have one kid who's designated, everybody's designated 1 to 6 or 1 to 8 who stands where. So they usually have an older kid at the front, an older kid at the back, and the other kids in between, and everybody knows where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be behind that kid, and they're supposed to walk single file to school. So, as with a lot of systems in Japan and a lot of these kohai, senpai, lower, like senior friend, lower friend type situations, when they work, they often work really well. However, when there's weaknesses in these systems, that's where a problem can happen, and in this case it can be quite serious. So what happens is the kids slowly meet up with each other, end up in this line going to school. Now, we haven't got a lot of confidence in this system because since the first day of the school year, an adult from our family has walked with them every day. So I do it often in the morning and often in the afternoon too. Or another adult in the family will do it. The mother or the grandmother or someone will walk with them in the morning and walk back in the afternoon. And that's pretty unusual in Japan because the way it's seen here by most people is there's a system, and the system is the kids do it on their own in a group and off they go. And isn't it great that they're independent? And as a Japanese person said on our video recently about the kids playing on their own in the park, isn't it great Japan's a safe place where kids can play on their own? And that's all well and good. However, what's disturbing and what's concerning is when you do walk with them and see what happens, you can see that it's really dangerous. And of course this isn't always the case. It's going to vary depending on the kids and who's in the group. It's going to depend on where they are living and what the roads are like and what the footpaths are like, and there's going to be a lot of variables, and no doubt there'll be some kids who are walking to school and home from school quite safely without any risk at all, quite possibly. However, as with all our videos, we just talk about what we see, and this is what we see. What we see is they're kids. The youngest ones are 6, the oldest ones are 10 or 11, and they're kids. So they're really easily distracted. So they walk along talking to each other and looking at things and picking things up and doing this over here. And the older kids are taught, usually it's by their own experience in the past. So they've had experience of walking with the group and being the younger one in the group and having the older member tell them. And that they're obsessed about walking in line. So the older one at the back will yell at the kids, stay in line, and stay close together, and be quite military about it, you know, quite over the top about it. And again, not always, but some of them are. And so they're on about that, but they're totally oblivious to cars and bicycles. And you know, in this area around here, you get big main roads like this that are obviously pretty scary when kids are around, and then tiny little narrow roads that are only wide enough for one car. And if kids are walking along on a little narrow road like that and a car comes quickly around the corner, there's nowhere for anyone to go. It's going to be very hard for the car to avoid them, and it's very hard for the kids to avoid the car. So it's really dangerous. And they're oblivious. They're totally oblivious. They've been told, they've been taught that, you know, you keep in line and keep together. But nobody's got, and we made a video before about situational awareness. And situational awareness in Japan is notoriously bad and obviously they're kids, so they're easily distracted. So what we see is kids wandering down the middle of the road, talking to each other, and down a narrow, quiet little road. And because it's quiet, and the cars only come every 30 minutes, but when they come quickly. Or bicycles. People fly past, and because when the kids are going to school and home from school, there's often there's older kids coming and going on bicycles, and there's mothers coming and going in their cars, and there's some people going to work and coming home from work. And some of them just drive too fast, and their situational awareness is low as well. And so what we regularly see is what the adults in our group will often have to say, bicycle, and so the kids, move to the side or get out of the way. Or car, kuruma, jitensha, and the kids get out of the way. If the adult wasn't there, who knows? Who knows the outcome? So that's the first thing we see. Then we get down from the small, narrow little roads down to the main road, which is sort of like this one. And in the mornings, they have a roster system for mothers or family members to come and do the crossing guard thing. And there's pretty much no training. They give them a piece of paper that says, there are a few do's and don'ts. Like one of them is, don't use your umbrella while you're doing the job. And we've actually seen one of the mothers using an umbrella, holding an umbrella while she's holding the flag for the kids to cross the street. And you can just see, it just depends on who the mother is, or occasionally the father is, how alert they are and how switched on they are, and usually they're not. And they're just doing it because they're rostered to do it, and they're given the bright yellow vest and the bright yellow flag on a stick, and they stand there and they wait till the crossing says green for crossing, the little green man for crossing, and they put their stick out, and then it says red, and they pull their stick back in, and that's about it. They might say to the kids, oh, wait a moment, or they might say to the kids, okay, go now, and that's pretty much it. They're not really looking around. They're not usually super aware of what cars are stopping and what cars aren't stopping. And then the kids will run across. So as soon as it goes green, as soon as it goes green, the kids run. They're not looking at the mother standing there with the yellow flag on a stick. As soon as it goes green, they just run across. And they don't look either. And of course, the way it works here is, people come around corners, like that white car is there. They'll be on a green to cross the street, but they have to rely on the person coming around the corner to stop, in the car to stop. And because often they don't. And if you're not paying attention, you can get wiped out. And they just don't pay attention. They run across the street. And again, it's not really the kids' fault. Kids are kids. It's the fact that they're not taught about these things, and it's not enforced, and that the people standing there with the yellow flag aren't doing anything about it at all. In the afternoon, for some strange reason, they think that the person with the yellow vest and the yellow flag is important in the morning, but they don't think that it's important to have someone doing that in the afternoon. And what they have in the afternoon is they have old guys like grandfathers, local old men, who are given a green cap and a green vest, bright green vest, and they go and stand on the street corners when it's time for the kids to come home. And again, they don't actively do anything. They're supposed to be some sort of safety guard or safety man, and they just stand there. And the kids run across the street without looking, and they wander down. The place I'm thinking about is they run across the busy street. As soon as the light goes green, they run across the busy street. And then they go off down a side street, and they just walk down the middle of the side street. And again, this is one of those very narrow ones where if a car comes around the corner, there's nowhere for anyone to go. And the old guy goes, oh, off you go, off you go there. And they just walk off down the middle of the street. And no one tells them. The mothers or the fathers in the morning that are doing the crossing, and the old guys in the afternoon, nobody's educating these kids on what they're doing is dangerous or what they're doing is not dangerous. Because no one's thinking about it. This is the thing with these systems. Everybody just goes along with the system, and nobody rocks the boat. Everybody just does what everybody does, and you can just see from a safety point of view, it's really easy to see. Really easy to see the danger. And probably out of Monday to Friday, out of a 5-day week, probably 2 or 3 times a week, see really potentially really dangerous situations where a car comes around the corner quickly or a bicycle comes around the corner quickly and it's like "Danger!" and the kids aren't looking, you know. So it's really amazing. And then 1 month this year, 1 month after the school year started, the school actually sent home a piece of paper, 2 pieces of paper, and one was an explanation. And it said, if you've seen anything, you know, here we are 1 month into the school year, and you know everyone's having a great time and doing their best, and if you've seen anything to do with the kids travelling to school that you think is dangerous, please tell us. And I was like, right. And there was another piece of paper attached that was quite big and had lots of lines on it. So right, let's do this. So we sat down and did it and just made a list, because we know where the danger points are, and everything that I just said to you about running across the street without looking, walking down the middle of narrow streets, we're just totally unaware of what's going on around them, and cars and bikes. And then the mentioned the cars and the bikes coming too fast down the narrow streets, and no one seems to be enforcing that either. And then these particular group, there's a convenience store they go past, and it has 3 entrances, and cars will turn off the road into these convenience stores really quickly because the traffic's moving fast. So when they get to an entrance or an exit, they'll turn really quickly into the convenience store. And if the kids happen to be walking along the footpath at that time, it's only luck that stops them getting hit. And so we made this big list of all the things that we see regularly that are really dangerous. And because they asked, they said, if you see anything dangerous with the kids commuting to school, please tell us what it is, and please make a note. And they wanted us to make a note of what we see that we think is dangerous. And next to it, there's another column that said what we would suggest about remedying it, about fixing it. So we made this huge list of all the dangerous things that we see regularly every morning and every afternoon. You know, the kid at the front of this particular group just walks like a zombie and doesn't look, and we see this a lot. And this isn't just this one group either, because what happens in the morning is it's like a spider web, and all the groups from all around the local area are all coming together towards the school. So we see other groups as well, and a lot of them are worse. You know, running, they'll get excited and they start running, and they'll be running across streets and chasing each other and playing games like kids do. You know, they're just behaving like kids, as you'd expect. But sadly, the system just says, oh, they'll be okay. We've shown them the route, they'll be okay. And they're not. They're just oblivious. They're running around and they're not paying attention, and they're just totally oblivious, you know. And so we made this huge list of all the things that we see that are dangerous, and said, well, first of all, obviously the kids need to be taught better about what's dangerous and what's not. The mothers and fathers who are doing the crossing guard thing need to be given some instruction on looking out for the dangers, watching for the car coming around the corner that's not stopping, which happens regularly. And we made videos about people not stopping at red lights here, right? Just because the crossing's gone green doesn't mean a car's not coming. You know, we made a video showing cars going through red lights here. The light goes yellow, red, it's red for a couple of seconds, and a car will go straight through. And if the kids take off as soon as their light goes green, that's the end of the story. So we recommended that the kids be taught better, that the crossing people be taught better, that the old guys in the afternoon be taught better, because they're just oblivious. And that the police be asked to get on top of these people speeding in the morning, because cars and bikes, because everybody's in a big hurry, you know, got to hurry to go somewhere, because it's part of the Japanese culture thing to be in a hurry all the time, you know. And so that translates through to driving the car and riding the bike as well. And so big hurry. And we recommended that the local police be asked to do some enforcement to slow everybody down. And that was about 5th month, May. That was May that we did that. And since May, here we are 6 months later, and nothing happened. They didn't do any more instruction for the kids, for the parents, for the old guys, never see the police. And because we're still doing this walk every morning, mostly it's me. Most mornings it's me, and I see it every morning, and I see it every afternoon, and nothing has changed. And what we see is on television here, on the news, now and again you see the tragic story, and usually the reporter's on the scene and they'll show you a patch of blood on the road and say, you know, there was a kid walking here on his way home from school and the car came and hit the kid and the kid died. And it's a tragedy, and everybody acts sort of surprised that it's a tragedy, and they talk about it, and then that's it, and nothing changes, and they don't talk about it again until the next kid dies. And you know, without trying not to sound overly dramatic, but you don't. It's a fairly dramatic situation, isn't it? When kids are dying on their way to school or home from school, and no one's doing anything about it. And of course, obviously, these things happen. These things happen in probably every country in the world who has kids walking to and from school, and cars is going to have a problem with kids getting hit by cars sometimes, right? But the tragic thing in this situation is because they have their system, they have their you know, the way it's done, and nobody questions it. Nobody questions it. Nobody, you know, we were surprised in May when they sent home that piece of paper and said, what do you think needs to be improved? We were surprised because, you know, it's not the sort of thing they normally do, you know, and we were surprised they did that. I was like, great, here's an opportunity, let's tell them what we think. So we did it, and then because nothing got done, did it? They didn't do anything about it. So maybe that's just part of the system as well, that they send home a piece of paper 1 month into the school year to see if there's any problems, and that's what they do. And if there is, and if anybody does say that there's anything that needs to be fixed, it just doesn't seem to get considered. Nobody's told them what to do if that happens, so nothing gets done. And none of the things that were suggested would cost money. They were all things that would just meant a bit of thinking was required, you know. So the purpose of this video is, you know, for people who are interested in Japan to hear another aspect. I mean, like we always say, the videos we make are just the things that we see, and because this is what we see regularly. And we saw this morning was a very good example of this. Just stupidity. The zombie at the front walking across the street without looking, and the other kids behind him got confused, and a car was coming, and what do we do? And they all just sort of stood there and looked at each other. Oh geez, you know, and just, it's just a tragedy waiting to happen. And then when we see it on the news and we see kids getting killed on TV, it's so frustrating, you know. And this is what it can be like here sometimes, is, you know, quite often these systems that they have are wonderful, and the kohai senpai, the older friend, younger friend, following the system thing, often it works really, really well. But when it fails, when it comes to something really important like kids' lives, it's really frustrating. And the reason for this video is some people might be interested, but the other thing is that the people who, you know, parents will be raising kids in Japan, you'll be up against this one, and they're not going to change the system. Whenever we make videos like this, there's always people who will say, oh, you need to do something to change it, you need to do something. Well, you know, they don't listen. They gave us the piece of paper, we filled it out, we sent it back. They don't listen. You could go up to the school and talk to the principal, and you could go to the local police station and talk to them. They wouldn't listen. And particularly, you know, particularly being a foreigner too, you know, oh, you come to our country and think you can change stuff. But even a Japanese person, if our Japanese family members went to the local police station or went up and saw the principal, nothing would change. It's not the way things work here, you know. So really, you know, you've got to, quite often with these things, you sort of got to find your own solution. And the only solution we've got at the moment is one of us has to be there. One of us has to walk with them in the morning, and one of us has to be one adult has to walk with them in the morning and walk with them in the afternoon, and just stay alert and look out for the cars and the bikes, and tell the kids, wait a minute, wait for the car, you know, wait for the fast bike. Because, you know, 6-year-old kids, the youngest ones are 6, the oldest ones are 10, and the 10-year-old ones aren't much more advanced than the 6-year-olds when it comes to common sense. And, you know, common sense is not a big thing here. You don't hear it. You know, in Western culture we often say, you've got to use your common sense. You have to use your common sense, and you have to think for yourself. It's not something that you hear here. People don't say that here. Everyone follows the person in front. And if the guy in front's a clown who doesn't pay attention, everyone just follows him. And if he runs across the road without looking, they'll all just run across the road behind him. And that's the other tragic thing. Often that reporter standing there with the pool of blood on the bitumen, often it's more than one kid. Because they're in a tight group. And so that when a car does come around the corner, often it'll get a couple of kids, and you hear that all the time. Some old guy's come along in his car and he's not, he's 80 years old and he's not paying attention, or some mother driving too fast on her way to school, or some clown playing Pokemon Go while he's driving the car. There was a truck a while ago. The clown driving the truck was playing Pokemon Go and just cleaned up a bunch of kids. And of course that's the clown in the truck's fault, but the kids too, if the kids were taught to be aware of what's going on around them and look out for the dangers, they might have had a chance. But they were just walking along in a group like zombies, just, they're programmed the route. That's what they're programmed for. They're not programmed for common sense or be alert or be aware or any of that stuff. And the whole culture's like that. The adults are like that too. We made a video about that. Generalizing again, not everybody, but a lot of the adults are. We made a video about what do you call that? Situational awareness in Japan, and it's just the adults aren't good at it because everyone's used to being told what's dangerous. There's a guard man everywhere telling you, abunai, and he's only telling you what he's been programmed to tell you, and they're used to that. So they're used to the light says green, you go. The flag guy puts his flag out. The guy puts his flag out because the light goes green. So the crossing guard isn't performing any service at all, really, because the light goes green, sticks the flag out without looking, and the light goes red. Pulls the flag in. Stop. Achieving nothing, adding nothing to the safety of the kids. So you can tell this is obviously anybody who's got kids, or anybody who cares about kids, or anybody who cares about other human beings is going to have some feelings about this, because it's just a tragedy. It's just a tragedy and it is really a tragedy when kids are dying unnecessarily, and not at the risk of over exaggerating or over dramatizing it. It's just, I mean, it really, how many kids is acceptable? If one kid dies because of this stupidity, it's a tragedy, isn't it? So yeah, look, to people who are raising kids in Japan, look, you might have to bite the bullet and do this too. And people ask that the lady or the man down there on the crossing in the morning, when we get to that person, often will say, do you walk with the kids every day? And I say, yes. And they say, and how unusual. What an unusual thing to do. And I just tell them it's because they're not safe. They're not paying attention enough, and the drivers of the cars and the bikes aren't paying attention enough, and they're not safe. And they nod, but you can see them thinking, well, that's pretty strange. Nobody does that. And that's the whole Japan thing. We're back to that again. Nobody does it, so nobody does it. And we've actually have had other parents say that they worry about their kid going to and from school, but they wouldn't do what we do because they wouldn't want to be doing something different. And no one else does. We see all these other kids in the morning, all the other groups in the morning, all coming towards the school. No adults with them. And coming home too, no adults with them. No one does it. No one does it. Even the parents who worry about their kids aren't doing it because no one does it. No one does it because no one does it because no one does it. But one of the mothers of one of the kids in our group said she was actually happy that we did it because she worried about her kid, So there's stuff like this in Japan. Sometimes you just have to go, okay, no one else does it, so I won't do it either. Sometimes you just have to do that. But when it comes to the safety of your children, and no one's complained. No one's complained and said, why are you doing that? Or nobody from the school said, we'd prefer you didn't do that. Nobody has said anything negative about it. Not to us anyway. They might say it to each other maybe. Oh, how strange. What a strange foreigner. They might, but who cares? Who cares? And the saddest thing is that it's inevitable sometime, in the next 10 years, someone's going to get hit by a car, aren't they? And or a bike or something, and hopefully they don't die. Hopefully they're not seriously injured, but when it happens, because it's going to happen, when it happens, they're all going to be surprised. Everyone will be surprised. Dame desu ne, taihen desu ne, and everybody will be surprised and disappointed, and isn't that terrible? And they'll be surprised by it, and we won't. We're going to go, well, and because You know, countries where everyone sues everybody else, you know, there's some disadvantages to that, but there's some advantages as well. They're not worried about that here. They don't worry about that. No one holds the school accountable for this stuff. No one holds anybody accountable for this stuff. When there's stupid stuff like this and someone gets hurt, it's just a surprise. And no one says it's that person should have been doing their job better, or this system sucks, we need to improve it. They all just go, whoa, tahen desu ne. That's the end of it. So, yeah. Up to you what you do. If you're raising your kids in Japan, it's up to you what you do, but our choice is we go along with them. And it, you know, no matter what that looks like to anybody else, our kids get to and from school safely, and we don't have to worry about it. So anyway, there it was. Like we say, we just show you what we see and what we hear. Some people really don't like videos like this because it's not about vending machines and saying how wonderful Japan is. Japanese people really don't like these videos. If one does comment on a video like this, usually it's defending the status quo. And even non-Japanese people as well will not like videos like this. So, but again, it's not complaining even. It's an emotional topic, but it's not complaining. It's saying this is what it's like in Japan, and this is how we deal with it. We're not complaining, we're not shaking the tree, we're not going off to the press or making big dramas or placards or protesting or anything like that, because we know that wouldn't change anything anyway. So we're not complaining. What we're doing is we're observing, we're telling you about it, and we're telling you what we do in response to it, which isn't to complain or harass anybody or get emotional about it. It's just to go along with them.
Anyway, there it was. More videos coming soon.